Hello and welcome to Cracking the Cryptic, where I'm going to end the suspense and talk to you about how to solve this puzzle that I set as a little conundrum at the end of my last video. Now, if you haven't tried this puzzle, I really recommend that you do have a go at it, even if you only spend 2 minutes on it. There's a link under the video that will take you to this screen, and there you can interactively try and solve it. But some of you thought I was trolling you, some of you thought this puzzle was unsolvable, and the reason for that is, let me show you what a solver makes of it. So this is the puzzle put into, I think, the most well-known computer solver on the internet, Andrew Stewart's site. So let's see what it makes of it. Take a step. There you go. It's not put in anything in it's run out of known strategies with no number entered into the grid. So you may say, well, how is this puzzle valid? Is it actually a unique puzzle? Well, if I go solution count and just bring that over, you can see number of solutions 1. So there is a single solution. It's just the computer solver doesn't understand how to find it. And now we get to the crux of it. So how do you solve this puzzle? And the reason I've held off covering puzzles like this on the channel is that the technique involved is far from straightforward to explain. I'm going to try myself in a minute to explain it to you, but it's something I've wrestled with. I've had lots of discussions with some super good solvers and mathematicians. Some very mathematical people find it quite easy to visualize. And some people just don't find it easy at all. And in fact, I'm going to give a shout out on the channel to any of you guys who can offer up the simplest way of explaining something called Girth's symmetrical placement. So over 10 years ago, the Sudoku forums were inhabited by mathematicians like Girth, that's his pseudonym, I don't know what his real name is, and he was the one who developed the technique, or the axiom, that enables puzzles like this to be solved. So let me tell you what that axiom is, and then we can talk a bit more about it. So the idea is that if you have a puzzle that has symmetrical given digits, and we'll talk about what symmetrical means in a second, then if you're told that puzzle has a unique solution, that solution must itself be symmetrical. Now, in the puzzle in front of us here, now this again is over a decade old. It's a puzzle that has the name Shining Mirror, created by somebody called Mauricio way back when. And if we were to draw an imaginary line from this top left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner of the grid, and imagine things reflected around that line, then you can see that wherever a 3 occurs on the right-hand side of that imaginary line, it would always reflect onto a 5. You see it the same down here. Wherever a 1 appears on the right-hand side, it always reflects onto a 9. And this is what I mean by symmetrical. 7s always become 6s. So there is complete symmetry around this line in this puzzle. Now the only numbers that don't reflect onto anything are the numbers 8. 8 you can see always reflects to itself. 2 always reflects to itself, and 4 always reflects to itself. And that's the key that you need to solve the puzzle if you know or can intuit Girth's theorem. So this is symmetry around this line. I'm now going to talk to you about why Girth works, and then we'll come back at the end and solve this puzzle. So let's have a look at a different grid. So this is an example that Tom Collier, the very fine UK Sudoku solver, came up with when I was discussing this topic with him. And I'm going to tell you, sort of use a hybrid of Tom's method of explaining this and Sam Cappleman-lyons' method. Both very fine mathematicians as well as super solvers. And the thing that we have to appreciate is how symmetry affects solutions to puzzles. And to do that, I'm going to talk about transforming this grid. Now, this grid is also symmetrical, but it's symmetrical in a different way. So rather than the symmetry occurring down the main diagonal here, what's happened is the symmetrical is rotational. So if the grid is rotated around 180 degrees, you can see this square here would map onto this square. So it would go and come down here. This square would rotate onto this square. So you can see here 2's seem to be mapping onto 7's, and indeed that's the case. Look, 7 rotate at 180 degrees, maps to 2. So 2's and 7's always map to each other, 4's and 5's always map to each other, 6's and 3's always map to each other, and 1's and 8's always map to each other. The only digit that maps to itself in this example is 9. Now, the first thing we need to do to understand Girth's theorem is to think about a way of transforming this grid. So if, for example, we were to say that we're going to list a transformation as an operation where firstly we exchange every 2 for its counterpart, every 2 for a 7, every 4 for a 5, every 6 for a 3, and every 5 to a 4, I think that was the other one. Well, then we'd end up with this grid. So all we've done there is permed the digits basically to their counterpart. Now if the second stage of our transformation is to rotate this grid around 180 degrees, then I'm sure you can all see that what we'd end up with is in fact just our original grid again. And you may say, why are you waffling on like this, Sam? Well, it's important that we try and get this in our head. So our transformation has 2 stages. Firstly, we perm the digits, and secondly, we rotate the grid. Now, what we could then say is that if we apply our transformation to our puzzle, the puzzle in front of us, then we end up with exactly the same puzzle. And Girth's contention is that if there is a unique solution to this puzzle, so if there is, he's saying it is symmetrical. Now, if that solution is symmetrical, then if we apply our transformation to that puzzle, that solution, I should say, if we apply the transformation to that solution, we should end up with exactly the same solution again, because Girth is saying that that solution has to be symmetrical. Now, the way that we need to therefore prove Girth's theorem is almost by a proof by contradiction. What would happen if we had a solution to the puzzle, this puzzle here, which is non-symmetrical? If there was a non-symmetrical unique solution, that would disprove Girth's theorem. So how would we be able to disprove that? Well, this is where our transformation comes in handy. And here you can see I filled this particular puzzle in, but if you look carefully, you'll see that the solution I filled in is not symmetrical in the way the givens were. So in the givens, 8's always mapped onto 1's. Now if we look at this square, for example, this maps to a 6. So, oh, something's gone wrong here. We could say this solution is not symmetrical in the way the givens were symmetrical. Well, that would seem to contradict Girth's theorem. But what we'd be able to show is by applying our transformation to this solution, we will find that we invalidate the uniqueness assumption. We will find there is a second way of filling this grid, which therefore means that the original puzzle was not unique. And this proof by contradiction of Girth's theorem is the key. So if we take this solution and we apply our transformation to it, the first thing we would need to do would be to perm all of these digits into their counterpart. So let's do that firstly of all. I did this earlier in preparation for the video. Just have to click a few times and we'll get to that very solution, the first stage of our transformation, which is this. And now what we need to do is to rotate this around 180 degrees. And once we do the rotation, we end up with this bottom right hand grid here. Now if you compare the left hand grid, which was our first solution, with the right hand grid, which is our solution gained by the transformation we defined originally, we know that the transformation didn't affect any of the givens or the regions. So you can see that here, all of the 2's, all of those initial pink squares are all exactly the same. However, the solution is clearly different. But that's a problem, isn't it? Because if the solution was unique, there could not be 2 solutions to this puzzle. So only where the transformation we've defined leads to the same solution will it not be possible to basically apply the transformation to a solution and end up with a second solution. In other words, the only situation, if you have symmetrical givens and you apply Girth's theory, it's true to say that the solution itself must be symmetric. And now I appreciate you might have to watch that a couple of times and think about it. It's not easy to get your head round. So this is that second transform solution with, some of the digits are identical in both solutions to that puzzle, but all of the purple digits have changed position. But obviously this is still a valid way of filling the grid. You can check for yourselves, you can look, and in fact I can check by pressing that, and you can see that it's all of the numbers 1 to 9 are in appropriate places. The problem is this puzzle has, I think, 8 solutions altogether, in fact. So Girth's amazing theorem, which none of the computer solvers seem to be aware of. Now let's think about it in the context of the shining mirror puzzle, and it's exactly the same trick here. If we can define a transformation in such a way that the puzzle has, the transformation applied to the puzzle leads to the puzzle itself, then we can use Girth's method. And here, obviously, what we just do is we define a permutation, so making 3's 5's, making 6's 7's, etc., and a rotation, not around 180 degrees, but around this main diagonal. And once we know that, all of a sudden the puzzle becomes solvable, because we know that the only digits that map to themselves in this puzzle are the numbers 2, 4, and 8. So there must be, on the main diagonal, these digits can only be the numbers 2, 4, and 8. And that's going to immediately, we can place a 4 there because of this 4 up here. This must be an 8. We may not be able to work out exactly what's going on in terms of, but once these 2 digits are 2 and 4, for example, all of a sudden this digit here would have to be a 7, because there's nowhere else a 7 could go. A 7 could not be on the leading diagonal. And then we know that 7 rotates onto 6, so I can immediately place the 6 in there. And in fact, the puzzle absolutely collapses. We could carry on and solve it. Maybe I'll go a bit further. But once you establish this this principle, it becomes rather easier to understand how to go about filling the digits in. Okay, so we get those. This must be a 2, 4, or an 8. This must be a 2 or an 8, and this must be a 4 or an 8, I think. And therefore you can see a 9. All of a sudden we can actually pencil mark 9s up here. Therefore, whenever we can pencil mark one thing, we can always pencil mark other things as well. 6, 8. What next? I've got 6 and 7 here and 6 and 7 here. So we know that the 6 and 7 in this top left 3x3 must be in these 4 cells. But as we know, these two cannot be 6 and 7. This must be this can't be a 1 anymore. So this must be the 1. This is a 9. This is a 6 or a 7, and this is a 6 or a 7. And the 9 here must give us a 9 down here, look. Maybe that's going to be useful. The moment you can do anything with 9s, you must be able to do exactly the same thing with 1s, just because of the symmetry. These 2 squares now must be 3 and 5, I think. So can we do anything with that? Not immediately. 3, 5. if we look at row 1 and ask where an 8 can go, this square is a hidden single because this square can't be 8, this can't be 8, this can't be 8, and this can't be 8. So this is the only place an 8 can go. And the moment I get that, I also get the 2 and the 4, which allows me to pencil mark some 2s and some 4s, look. Do the same over this side. Those 2 must be 2s, I think. Two. Can pencil mark 2s into those 2 positions. Now that marries up actually with the 2s in these 2 positions. So we know we've not yet managed to put a 2 into row 4 of the grid. It can't be here anymore. If we put a 2 here, there would be a 2 here and a 2 here. So that's not possible. That must be a 2. And I guess by symmetry we're going to get the same. Well, yeah, because we know that there's rotational symmetry on 2s, so that immediately gives us a 2 there as well. 1, 5, 8. This square here must be an 8 because we've got 1 and a 5 in the row. 8. Now again, by reflection around this main diagonal, that means this is an 8. And we've got 1 and 5, I think, to place into those 2 squares, so let's put those in. And 1 that we know reflects onto 8, and 5 reflects onto 3. So this must be a 3-8 pair. Let's put that in. Not 3-8 because we've already got an 8 here. So what's gone wrong there? It's 5. It's 3. Oh, 1 reflects onto 8 onto the other puzzle. That's what I'm getting wrong there. 1 in this puzzle reflects onto 9. So this should be 3 and 9. So this can't be an 8 anymore. And that must be an 8. Therefore there must be an 8 over here. This must be 3 and 7, which must now be this way around. Therefore this square here, if we reflect it around this square here, you can see up there must be a 6. Must be a 5, which reflects the fact that the 3 and the 5 are interchangeable. 6 here now resolves the 6 over on this side. 6 and 7 like this. Anyway, and it's going to carry on. Maybe I will finish it off because it's not completely straightforward, I guess. 1, 3, and 6 down here. 1, 3, 6. Can't be a 3. That can't be a 6. That can't be a 1. 2, 4, 6. So this must be 4 and 5. 6 is here, and this 6, so that's got to be a 6 into this square. By Girth, that means this is a 7, I think. That means this is a 7 up here. Must need a 4 and a 3 into these 2 positions. So 3 and 4 into those 2 squares. And what are we going to need? 5 and 9 into these 2, I think. So that must be this way round. The moment we get the 9 here, we know that one must be the 1. 1, 3, 6. 1, 9. 1, 1. This must be a 1. 1, 5. 3, 5 over this side. That must be a 5 now. That resolves the 5 and the 4. That should be a 9, which resolves the 9 and the 3. 3, 2, 4, 4, 2 like that. 4, 3, 3, 4 is that, I think. 2, yeah, that would make sense with this square here. And we've got 2 and 5 left to place. And that, I think, is correct, and that's looking like it's reflecting onto the right numbers. Check. Looks all good to the machine. So now I fully appreciate that that is probably a bit of a something that might cause some of you bad dreams. Do spend some time thinking about it, and as I say, I will give a shout out for anyone who either writes an email to us, writes a comment to us, or sends us a tweet that I think is the most succinct and elegant way of describing Girth's symmetrical placement. So I look forward to your feedback on that. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.